Hello, my darlings. Okay, so we were using the TI-Nspire in class, and I know some of you have the TI-84 calculator at home. So let's look at how to use the TI-84 for matrices. And remember, we're going to use this for checking purposes in this unit, but going forward, there are some things that you'll be able to use this quickly for. So the first thing is to learn how to enter a matrix into the calculator. Now, if you noticed, over here, this x to the negative 1, that's the inverse key. And above the inverse key in blue, it says matrix. So when we want to do something with a matrix, we're going to press second matrix. And notice there's a whole bunch of names. Now, yours may look different here. You may have other numbers. I have a matrix in matrix D, and it happens to be a 3 by 3 matrix. The others are empty. If you have something already in there, there's a number here. You're just going to type right over it. Don't worry about it, okay? And I'll show you how that works. Now, we're going to, now that we're here, we want to put matrix A into the calculator. So we need to edit the matrix. We're going to arrow to the right twice, and we're going to choose 1 for matrix A. Now, in class, we had a matrix that was 2 rows. And notice when I arrow over, I now have 2 rows in my matrix, and we had 3 columns. And then if I arrow again, I now have the correct size matrix. If you see that it doesn't look right, you can arrow back, or arrow up, and then back, and you can change those numbers to whatever it was that you needed, okay? And now we're going to put in the number. So now we put in a -2. Make sure you use the negative key. Press enter to put it in there. We want 0 and enter. The next one across is a 1 and enter. Then we go to row 2. That's 5, enter. -7, enter. And 8, and we enter. We now have matrix A is in our calculator. Now we're going to put matrix B in. So we're going to go back again. We're going to second matrix over the x to the -1. Notice next to A, I have a 2 by 3 matrix stored in there now. I'm going to arrow over to edit, and this time we're going to put in matrix B. We're going to press enter. And matrix B is also 2 rows by 3 columns. And you can hit enter instead of arrowing. That's just fine. I'm going to put in a 5 and enter. Then we're going to put in a 7, enter. -1, enter. 0, enter for row 2. Then a 2, enter. And finally, -8, enter. Now we have both our matrices in there. Okay, so if I quit, I'm now back to the regular calculator part. And we have the matrices in there. We don't see them, but they are in there. So if we now want to do matrix addition, we can go back to matrix. So we second go to the X inverse key where it says matrix in blue. Now this time, we're just going to choose 1 for A, and we're going to add, then we're going to go back to matrix, so second matrix, and we're going to choose 2, and we are adding matrix A plus matrix B, and hit enter. So if you have a whole bunch of matrices, and then we're going to ask you to do operations on them, put all the matrices in first, and then you can go ahead and just quick check them. And suppose we want to do, so we've done matrix addition. If I want to do matrix subtraction, this time let's do matrix B. So I'm going to go back, second matrix, I'm going to choose 2 for B. Then I'm going to subtract, and I'm going to do second matrix, and I'm going to choose 1 for A, and I'm going to press enter. And there's the answer to the subtraction. Scalar multiplication, if I want to do -2 times matrix A, then we just second matrix, go get matrix A, and press enter. There you go. We have doubled that matrix. Okay. Now, if I try to multiply, so let's go second matrix, and we're going to choose 1 for A, times, and then we're going to do second matrix, and we're going to choose 2 for B and A times B, and we get an error, the dimensions mismatch, because remember, we have a 2 by 3 and a 2 by 3, and those inner numbers are 3 and 2. We have 3 columns in the first, 2 rows in the second. They don't match. You cannot multiply. So I'm going to go to where my error is, and it's telling me that I can't multiply by that matrix. So I'm going to delete matrix B. And we're going to go back to second matrix. This time we're going to edit, and we're going to put in a new matrix C. So that's 3. And matrix C, I want it to have 3 rows and 2 columns. Okay, and let's make this -1, enter, 4, enter, 2, enter, 5, enter, -3, enter, and -7. And I hit enter. There's my matrix C. I'm going to quit to go back to my main screen. So I have A times already, so I had to arrow over to get to the end of that. A times, now I'm going to go back to second matrix. I'm going to choose that matrix C, which is in 3, and I press enter. There's the answer to the multiplication. Okay, so we definitely can do that. Now, we also might need to find the inverse of a matrix. So remember, we can't find the inverse when we don't have a square matrix. Okay, so I cleared my calculator screen because you know me, I love to have a clear workspace. Now what I'd like to do is I'm going to second matrix, and we're going to edit. Now, I know we've been arrowing to the right twice, but you can arrow to the left once and it'll wrap around to the end. And I want to look at this matrix D. Now, right now it says there's a matrix in there, and I want to show you how we can change it without too much trouble. The matrix that I do want to put in is also a 3 by 3, so I'm just going to hit enter on the 3 and enter on the 3. But I need different numbers inside. So I need a 1, press enter, 2, enter, 4, enter, 2, enter. Now make sure you hit the -3 and not a subtraction. If you hit a subtraction, you're going to get an error message, okay? So -3, enter, 5, enter, and then the bottom row I want to be 0, enter, -1, enter, and 0. So you can see it just types right over whatever you had. And if you change the size, it's a different size, it'll just eliminate rows and columns as needed, okay? And the numbers that were in there will just disappear. Okay, so now that I have a square matrix, I'm going to quit. And since I have a square matrix, I'm going to go back to second matrix, and notice the middle column is math, and the first thing on that list is DET, and guess what that stands for? That stands for determinant. And then I can go back to second matrix, and I can choose matrix D, because that's a square matrix, 3 by 3, choose enter, and my determinant value is -3. Also, since this is a square matrix, I'm going to go back to second matrix. I'm going to choose 4 for matrix D. And remember what I called this key before? The inverse key, because it's x raised to the -1. If I press it, now I have a matrix raised to the -1. That's the inverse of matrix D. And if I press enter, there it is. Now, the problem is it's giving you repeating decimals. So you need to realize this is -1, and 0.6 repeating, that's 2/3. So -1 and 2/3, what is that as a mixed numeral? This is 0, this is 2/3, this is 1n, a repeating 3 is 1/3. Make that an improper fraction. Here you have -0.3, so that's -1/3. And see that arrow? That means if we keep arrowing to the right, we will see the rest of the matrix, okay? And again, both of these have 1/3 in here, so this is -7 and 1/3, 2 and 1/3, but you should change those to improper fractions. Now, okay, so the last thing we want to look at is how we solve the linear equations. So in class, we had the system 3x plus 7y equals -2, and we had -2x plus y equals -10. And we said what we need to do is I'm going to go to second matrix. We're going to edit. Let's edit matrix A just because it's quicker to get to. And this time we want a 2, enter, by 2 matrix. And notice how the third column just disappears. And we're going to put in our coefficients on the first equation. For the x and the y, we had a 3, enter, and we had 7 y's, enter. On the second equation, we had negative 2 x's, enter, plus 1 y, enter. Now putting in the x's and the y's, just the numbers. I need to quit before I can go to another matrix. So that's a little trick. You cannot go from editing one matrix to editing another matrix. You have to quit first, then second matrix. We're going to edit. This time we're going to edit matrix 2, and we press enter. And we're going to put in the constant matrix, which has 2 rows, but only 1 column. And notice how the size changes. And our first equation was equal to a negative 2, enter. Our second equation was equal to negative 10, enter. Now I'm going to quit again. So remember, what we want to do is we want to take the coefficient matrix. So we're going to go second matrix, and that's in A. We want the inverse of that. So we use this x to the negative 1 times our coefficient matrix. So we're going to go second matrix, and our coefficient matrix is in B. And we press enter, and there is the solution to the system of equations where x is 4 and y is negative 2. Hope this helps, guys.